I think that Justin Herbert and Mike McDaniel are going to be one of the more dynamic duos in the NFL this season, and Jake Hefner from Chargers Unleashed is going to tell you why I'm right.
You are Locked On Chargers, your daily podcast on the Los Angeles Chargers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What is up, and welcome into the Locked On Chargers podcast. I'm your host, Daniel Wade, joined as always by my co-host, David Drogemeyer, and we've been covering the Chargers now for 10 seasons, but this is our 8th year as the host of the Locked On Chargers podcast, bringing you your team every day as part of the #1 sports podcast network. David, we have a special guest today because we are bringing on the better half of the Chargers Unleashed podcast. Dan Wilkinson not able to show up today, but we have Jake Hefner here to break down a lot of the big topics of the offseason, including the marriage between Mike McDaniel and Justin Herbert, and why he's bullish on that, and also Omarion Hampton's fit and what Mike McDaniel's offense is going to bring. But more than that, who is going to be their center? Because somebody has to block for those guys. Is he all in on Tyler Linderbaum? Maybe not. We're also going to get into one of the most important offseason questions, which is, will Odafe Oweh be back in lightning bolts in 2026? Here he is, Jake Hefner. All right, guys, well, we have one of our first special guests of the offseason, and we're very excited to have him on. It's the better half of the Chargers Unleashed podcast. We have Jake Hefner on the show today. Dan Wilkinson had to bow out because he is sick. Both of them have young children and are going through a lot right now. But first, congratulations, Jake, a new dad over there. Very, very excited for you and all of the sleepless nights that you have ahead of you, man.
Thank you, sir. Yeah, very much looking forward to all of the sleepless nights that are forthcoming. It's been a wild ride so far. We're almost a month in, but loving every day of it. As much sleep as I'm missing, I'm still trying to rediscover exactly what is sleep, but it's been a fun ride so far.
You know, what a good night's sleep constitutes as post having a baby is different than pre-baby for sure. But super excited for you, one of the youngest Chargers fans out there now, if you decide to do that to your child, which I debated for a while because obviously builds integrity.
You already know Jake Hefner already put him in a onesie. There's no question that hasn't already happened.
I'm sure she's in it just like my daughter is also in it for better or for worse. But hey, they get to potentially experience the first Super Bowl just like we will, hopefully. But let's get into, I think, the biggest part of the offseason so far. I mean, I think if you're talking about what has happened so far, if you're talking about the best thing that's happened for the Chargers so far, it's a two-part thing. It was first firing Greg Roman, which if they don't lose in embarrassing fashion in the playoffs, you might not get that. So that is a win in its own right. But the other thing was landing the top offensive mind. I know none of us were sure if Jim Harbaugh would kind of go against what he's done in the past and actually hire someone like a Mike McDaniel, and they did it. So we know, obviously, having watched Justin Herbert play every game of his entire career so far, how good he is. But how excited are you to see him get that schematic advantage that comes along with having an offensive coordinator like a Mike McDaniel?
I think about that whole week that we had to go through, basically, where it's like, okay, that news came down that late afternoon that the Chargers are going to hire Mike McDaniel. And then
torture chamber.
Yeah, man.
No official announcement from the team. And then now you're starting to hear all these rumors to say, oh, he's still in contention for the Raiders job, or Baltimore is still considering him for this job. And if he's not hired for this, then he's going to get a head coaching job over here. That week sucked.
Yeah.
That week was terrible for us to basically just sit on pins and needles waiting for that official announcement. But in the big picture of things, as you said, Dan, going away from what Jim Harbaugh has been used to, letting go of Greg Roman, who has been a coaching associate of his for years and years and years, going all the way back to the early college days of him coaching. And again, for someone who really bought into his formula as far as power, run scheme, what you're going to do, now you bring in one of the most innovative minds in terms of the passing game, and Mike McDaniel. And the things that you hear, whether it's from Jim Harbaugh, Mike McDaniel, Joe Hortiz, as far as what their whole concept is, because they know that there's still going to be a running team. But Mike McDaniel's really going to try to interweave these concepts to make it a multiple offense. And for Justin Herbert at this point in time, especially now when you look at the nucleus of weapons that he has around him, majority of them are very young. You've gotten a lot of young weapons over the last 2 years that have really stepped up. It's like, this is an offense that with the right creative mind behind it can absolutely thrive. Not only am I excited to see what Justin Herbert's going to do in a Mike McDaniel offense, but when you look at the likes of Ladd McConkey and Oronde Gadsden, when you look at what Mike McDaniel was able to do with tight ends in Miami during his stint there, you get very excited about that. I am actually really excited to see what Keandre Lambert-Smith is going to do. If you're looking for that speed option, which we know Keandre Lambert-Smith has, obviously he wasn't able to make as big of an impact as maybe we would have wanted this past season. I think he's going to be able to thrive in this when obviously you're getting Justin Herbert some protection, a little bit more time to throw those deep passes down there. But this offense now can be multiple. And obviously you shore up the offensive line in a couple other key areas. You've got the makings here of something that now becomes just a huge strength, a huge boost for Justin Herbert. Outside of Mike McDaniel, I like the fact that they ended up keeping Sanjay Lal, who's been a great, just asset for developing the wide receivers on this team, Shane Day as well as that. But this is an exciting time right now, especially just heading into the offseason when now you think to say, okay, maybe some guys that the Chargers were going to go after in free agency and the draft, their whole plan may completely change now for a concept, and it's exciting to think that.
Yeah, it is, and I want to stick on just the chase for a second because, David, I didn't think we were ever going to see the chase for Jim Harbaugh again, right? Where you have Chargers fans staking out local restaurants across Los Angeles. You have people tracking flights across the country. You have people running into Jim Harbaugh at Disneyland, right? And that is kind of it felt like a mini version of that. I won't lie. It got me up again for, man, I think we did 15 straight shows on Harbaugh at one point. I think we probably did something like 7 or 8, 9 shows straight on if not Mike McDaniel was going to be in the building because of all of what you said. But I do think that is the interesting part, though, is we only know of the Mike McDaniel, Kyle Shanahan offense. We know of the Mike McDaniel, Miami Dolphins offense, but we don't know what the fusion of the Jim Harbaugh, Mike McDaniel offense is going to look like, as they tell us that, David, they're going to still keep those same principles in place, but still try to add the, dynamic creativity that Mike brings to the table.
Yeah, I'm super excited about what the combination of his running game and his exotic run looks are going to look like in combination with his quick passing game, with how he is able to focus and focal point wide receivers and get them open, Jake, and really, get them the football. It's really, really exciting. You look at all the different weapons that the Chargers have, and there's so many guys that you feel like, man, Mike McDaniel is really going to unlock this guy. And I think one of the guys, we talked about a lot was Omarion Hampton. We're really excited about what he is going to do. Not only, running the football, but catching the ball out of the backfield. I think that's one of the things a lot of people don't give Devon Achane a lot of enough credit for, was what he did and how much damage he did in the receiving game, Jake.
Yeah, 100%. Obviously, getting Omarion Hampton back healthy is going to be a big factor of that. If you're talking about just the running back stable in general, I'm not sure. And again, I'm not entirely against it, but first of all, it's great hearing the health update of Najee Harris. I don't know if he's going to be the fit for a Mike McDaniel offense. I think it's much more of a power offense for him. I think Kamani Vidal should be loving this for Mike McDaniel coming in. I think this offense is going to be perfect for him to thrive in. And again, as you were saying, David, just some of those outside zone concepts, opening up those running lanes for Omarion Hampton, because we know what he's about. The burst that we saw from him, not only when you go back to his college years, but in some of those stints that you saw during the regular season, he's got that type of power. He's not going down, but if he gets through the hole, he can make some big time plays happen. So when you're obviously talking about an offensive line that's hopefully going to be healthier, but in a concept that's going to be more tailored to getting opportunities open for him, not just in the running game, but the passing game as well, it's something to be really excited about.
And I am really excited about it, especially because of the intentionality of what Mike McDaniel's kind of running back passing game looks like, right? Where you're seeing a guy running around basically just to be a lead blocker for the throw into the flat so that Devon Achane has a path, right, to get an explosive. And I do think with Omarion Hampton, you never know until you see it against other NFL athletes. There's a lot of big dudes, right, who end up not working out. There's a lot of fast dudes that end up not working out. You don't often see the combination of both that just kind of looked different as soon as Omarion Hampton took the field. And I love it for Kamani. I don't love it as much for Najee because I think this is more west, east to west. And I think Najee is better north and south, is which is how it should be. But when you look at what Omarion and Kamani specifically are able to do, a lot of those big runs came on the outside. But we have much more to get into with Jake Hefner, including who the center of the future is going to be for the Chargers, and if that's Tyler Linderbaum, and more on today's Locked On Chargers podcast. First, though, I need to tell you guys about Indeed, because Indeed sponsored jobs are where you need to be if you need a job placement filled, because workplace chaos, deadlines stacking up, inbox overflowing, and the one position that you have to fill is still sitting open. When the pressure's on and you need the right hire, this is a job for Indeed sponsored jobs. Indeed sponsored jobs helps you reach the people who will actually fit what you're looking for: skills, experience, location, so you're not just hoping the right candidate stumbles across your post. And here's a stat that says it all. In the minute I've been talking to you, companies like yours made 27 hires on Indeed, according to the Indeed data worldwide. Spend less time searching and more time actually interviewing candidates who check all of your boxes. Less stress, less time, more results. When you need the right person to cut through the chaos, this is a job for Indeed sponsored jobs. And listeners of this show will get a $75 sponsored job credit to help your job get the premium status that it deserves at Indeed.com/podcast. Just go to Indeed.com/podcast right now to support our show by saying that you heard about Indeed on this podcast. Indeed.com/podcast. Terms and conditions apply. Need to hire? This is a job for Indeed sponsored jobs. As the new year gets going, a lot of people are trying to simplify their routines, and dinner is a big one. Between busy workdays, cold winter nights, and packed schedules, having an easy, reliable dinner plan makes a huge difference, and that's where Home Chef comes in. Home Chef takes the stress out of cooking by delivering fresh, pre-portioned ingredients right to your door with easy-to-follow recipes that actually taste great. They're #1 rated by users of other meal kits for quality, convenience, value, taste, and recipe ease, and it's easy to see why. Meals come ready to fit in your schedule, 30-minute recipes, oven-ready trays, or quick lunches, which I will tell you, Jake Hefner, now that you're a father of a newborn, how quickly you can get your own meals in and people caring about your meals is going to go way down. Give yourself something that's convenient and give yourself lots of options with over 30 weekly options, including family-sized meals and different dietary choices. Plus, it saves time and money. Home Chef customers save an average of $86 per month on groceries. And for a limited time, Home Chef is offering our listeners 50% off your first box, free shipping, and free dessert for life. Just go to homechef.com/lockedon. That's homechef.com/lockedon for 50% off your first box, free shipping, and free dessert for life. Must be an active subscriber to receive the free dessert. Let's switch to who is going to be blocking for them, because we did have some news come out this week, Jake, because Bradley Bozeman somewhat abruptly retired, right? Like I didn't know if the Chargers were going to try to keep him around potentially as a backup. He ended up kind of taking that decision out of their hands, even though I don't necessarily think he was going to be back. Now the Chargers do end up saving that $6 million. Now it doesn't give them that security blanket to potentially throw him out there with, Zion or someone else to try to be the center next year. Now we know he is gone, and now all of the attention goes towards trying to find the new center, trying to find an improvement on what they've had at center over the last couple of years. So with now them having such a, glaring hole there and how much they've struggled the last few years, are you all in for a Tyler Linderbaum or a Connor McGovern? Like, is that what you feel like they have to do in free agency to try to kind of remedy what's ailed them?
Not necessarily all in for a Tyler Linderbaum. And it's not from a standpoint of, because obviously you've heard some of these reports that have come out for earlier this week, just as far as, the pass blocking braid, is it going to be good enough? But you look at some of the top centers that are available, whether it's Linderbaum or McGovern, they're all young as far as the free agents go.
They have
26,
options,
28 years old. But for Linderbaum, you're going to get in a bidding war. And maybe the worst thing for anybody who wants Tyler Linderbaum to come to the Chargers is the fact that Jesse Minter is now the head coach of the Baltimore Ravens, considering the fact he knows what a bad center looks like. He knows what a bad offensive line looks like. And you hear his comments over the last 2 days. They're definitely not letting him go without a fight. But even if he does hit the open market, you know that he is going to be a highly coveted player by a number of other teams.
Well, and the Titans just released Lloyd Cushenberry too, and so now the team that's up there with you in cap space now is in the center market as well.
All of a sudden, center has become like, the missing piece for everybody. Again, whether or not he's with the Baltimore Ravens, are you Joe Hortiz willing to get in a bidding war and keep knocking that price up for the most coveted center on the free agent market? Or is it wiser for him to go the Connor McGovern route?
Yeah.
Be a little bit, as Joe Hortiz likes to say, spend the money, but he's not going to spend it recklessly.
Not
and from the
trying to
standpoint,
overpay, sure.
yes. And while I am actually bullish on the center class coming in the draft, I think you kind of need to go back to the days where you brought in a good veteran like Corey Linsley and have that as your established foundation right in front of Justin Herbert for the rest of the offensive line to flourish. And again, you can go out and you can get one of these guys as far as developmental guys, have on the bench as good quality depth, which Joe Hortiz has been great at doing in terms of revamping that from the bottom up. But I think when it comes to that, the one caveat I always keep talking about with Dan on the pod is we're all waiting when it comes. We're all excited, obviously, for free agent frenzy. And when that checkered flag drops and like the floodgates open and it's that first day that comes around and the Chargers don't do anything right. And everybody's pissed off for just that one day. And then it's always day two. Maybe there's an inkling that after what we've witnessed with the Chargers offensive line over these past 2 years, that may change.
I hope so. And it needs to change. It has to change. There has to be intentionality behind fixing it. And, obviously that wasn't the only issue. It wasn't just the center position that was the problem. The interior of the offensive line as a whole is under reconstruction as it, as it really needs to be. And it was a disaster last year. And it's the third chance for this regime to try to get it right and not let Justin Herbert get hit at a historic rate. How confident are you that the Chargers will get it right and have a good offensive line in 2026?
It's going to actually take a lot of work. We obviously talk about the big three with Mekhi Becton, with Bradley Bozeman and Zion Johnson. So potentially you're looking at replacing 3 offensive linemen for this team. It's not unheard of. The Chicago Bears did that last year, and it worked out tremendously for them. Yeah. But it's not an exact science. We've seen the Chargers spend money like that on offensive linemen in the past, and it doesn't end up coming to fruition. Also, Jamari Sawyer is a free agent. Trey Pipkins is a free agent. All of a sudden, you've got some depth pieces here on your offensive line that are also contracts that you have to figure out. So it's not just your starting 3 of the interior that you have to worry about. Now you got to worry about building up this depth as well. Offensive line has to be a position that you put a premium on this season. No doubt about it, whether it's through free agency or the draft, you need to be pulling from both of those to ramp this thing back up. For the standpoint of the Zion Johnson situation, if you want my opinion as far as him fitting in Mike McDaniel's offense, I actually think it might be the best thing for Zion, considering the fact that, say what you will about him, he is still a very athletic offensive lineman. And his play is going to elevate when you've got Rashawn Slater playing next to you, which he did not have this past year. And I think his play is going to elevate when he has better center play to his right as well. But in this particular offense, I think it's great for him. Whether or not the Chargers are going to end up bringing him back as far as what his projected numbers are, don't know. I don't know if that's going to be the case. Time will tell, but to your question, Dave, I know I kind of went on an elongated answer there, but can they fix it? I believe they can. I think that Joe Hortiz tried to bet on 11 wins, Pop, a year ago. And then when you see it just get even worse after your 2 best offensive linemen go down, there's no way that you're going back there in that mindset. When your franchise quarterback is taking hits like that, you have to put as much as you can to keep him upright this season.
Yeah, exactly. And like the first season you get a pass, right? Like because they were in such a tough situation, just being, $50 million over the cap when they took over and all the hard decisions they had to make there and the contracts they were kind of stuck with to a certain extent. Last year, they, reportedly didn't like the free agent class, and a lot of those dudes got overpaid, right? Like a lot of those guards, even centers, got overpaid and might not have lived up to it last year, and it seemed like they were trying to stay away from that. They went more mid-market with Mekhi Becton, who, again, unlike Zion Johnson, doesn't fit now with what the Chargers are going to be doing. Drew Dalman would have fit greatly. Might not have fit in Greg Roman's offense, but he definitely would have fit great in Kyle Shanahan's offense, and now, in the Shanahan, Mike McDaniel offense, and now, the Chargers, the price just went way up for a center. So it'll be really interesting to see because, like, if you're Connor McGovern, that makes no sense for you to sign before, Tyler Linderbaum does because he's literally going to reset the market, which means a rising tide lifts all boats or however the saying goes. But I do think that, yeah, like they have to get it right. Like they have to get it right. And you just hope that you're right. Like that comment about, 11 wins, pretty good, right, Pop? Like that resonates this year. And, he's going out of his way to make sure that kind of thing doesn't happen again. At the same time, like, when you hear him, like, it's hard not to get frustrated when he's like, okay, well, protecting Justin Herbert isn't just about the offensive line, guys, right? It's about running backs and all this stuff. It's like, no, it is. Like, there's no, Jamar Chase hasn't saved Joe Burrow from ending up on, missing half of seasons or more than that 3 separate times in his career so far. So, you just want to see it. Obviously, I care much more about the actions than what he has to say manicured in a press conference situation. At the same time, like, get it fixed. Like, if this offensive line is good, the sky is the limit for this team, depending on how the rest of this offseason shakes out. But we still have more to get into here with Jake Hefner, including one of the biggest, most pressing offseason questions, which is, will Odafe Oweh be back with the Chargers in 2026? We're getting into that and more in today's Locked On Chargers podcast. Ever wanted to experience the NBA Finals live and in person? FanDuel is giving you the chance to turn that dream into a reality with their NBA sweepstakes. I know that's something that's on my bucket list. Go to an NBA Finals game, hopefully one that the Lakers are in. But here's how it works. Use your profit boost on any NBA future and you'll automatically be entered for a shot to win an NBA Finals trip for 2. That's right, flights, tickets, the whole experience covered. If you're already looking at the board and thinking about which team can make a deep run, this is the perfect time to lock it in. I love futures this time of year. Whether it's picking a team to win the championship or grabbing a conference title, it adds that extra layer of excitement for every game down the stretch. And right now, I'm looking at the Eastern Conference winner because that is a wide open race. You have the Cleveland Cavaliers at plus 280, Boston Celtics, who with Jason Tatum potentially coming back could leapfrog that at plus 340, but there's a lot of juice there. All you have to do is visit FanDuel.com to get started and use your profit boost on an NBA future to get entered for your chance to win a trip to the NBA Finals. Play your game with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Flipping to the other side, the Chargers have a big-time decision to make on who, to me, is the number one free agent internally that they have, and that is Odafe Oweh. And they did trade a 5th-round pick for him. They could end up getting a compensatory pick for him back, but the problem is, if you get a 3rd-round comp pick or a 4th-round comp pick, you're probably not getting an Odafe Oweh with that pick, right? So that is the thing, is, yeah, you can let him go, but it leaves a huge hole. And I will say free agency is much deeper at edge rusher than it is at center. At the same time, you did trade that 5th for him. Do you think that makes it more likely that they're going to kind of push more into the middle of the table to try to bring him back?
I think so. And I think it only elevates a little bit more from the standpoint that you have Chris O'Leary now as your defensive coordinator who learned under Jesse Minter, who understands that you need 3 edge rushers to really elevate this defense and make it the best that it possibly can be. And when you don't know what you're going to have with Khalil Mack, whether or not he's going to return, whether he's going to retire, whether he's going to go elsewhere, you're going to have Tuli's contract that's coming up. You don't necessarily need to extend him this year, even though he's eligible for it, but you're not going to put that much money into one position. But the return that you got from Odafe Oweh, because let's remember, when Khalil Mack was out for those 4 games, Tuli was doing everything that he could to create a pass rush, but it was only coming from him. It wasn't coming from anybody
wasn't enough
else.
Either. Yeah.
As soon as Odafe Oweh was inserted into this lineup, everything changed defensively for them. So
got a sack in his first game.
Exactly.
And then when Khalil Mack came back and you had all 3 of those guys, to your point, it even hit a different level. It was good when they had Oweh and Tuli. When they had the trio of guys, you really, I thought, saw that kind of defense unlocked.
And then to haul off and have 3 sacks in the playoffs against New England. I mean, hey.
2 strip sacks, too, to go along with
that. Just bumped the price up that much more. So I think that this definitely has to be the next priority for the Chargers to get under contract before we even get to free agency. I know we're getting ever so close over these next few days and weeks, but there's no question. I think that you have to bring him back, just considering the fact of, yes, you traded for him. Yes, he's still young. I think he can make a lethal combination with him and Tuli if you end up getting that contract signed as well. That's a great bookend future that you could have for years with those 2. And then you just keep adding to it down the road, whether we're talking free agency for, a 1 or 2 year veteran, or especially in this draft, for which edge is definitely a deep class for that, where you can find some 3rd down rotational edge rushers, guys who can come in and set the edge. I think you're in a really good spot for that. But number 1 priority for sure is re-signing Odafe Oweh.
got to have the proven commodity, right? And I really like what he brings with his length and his speed and how he uses that. Like, he's such a rare athlete. And
you know,
the Chargers haven't had a guy like that in quite a while. And you know it works for sure. And yeah, I mean, those guys together was absolutely lethal. But also, to your point, Jake, is you can't forget that Khalil Mack is only, even if he is coming back, a 1-year fix. Right?
Yeah.
He's probably going to retire very, very soon. So thinking about what you're going to do with that edge position is still having to be on the forefront of your mind, whether you bring back Odafe Oweh or not. But, kind of going to the linebacker position here. This is another one that's going to be a very interesting one here. Junior Colson was supposed to be that long-term running mate for Deion Henley. After 2 injury-riddled seasons, this year feels like a make-or-break year for him. And with the uncertainty surrounding him going into year 3, how big of a need do you think linebacker is for this team?
It's kind of a sneaky big need because Denzel Perriman's also a free agent. You don't know whether or not he's coming back. And again, it's good for Junior Colson, just again, from the standpoint of the Chris O'Leary. There's probably not that's going to be much that's going to be changing from a Jesse Minter defense because he knew that very well during his time at Michigan. And trust me, there was a lot of excitement for him as a 3rd-round pick. And then just to see everything that took place during his rookie year and not coming out the way it should. And then, of course, him going on IR before the season even starts. This past season was just such a bummer. So you talk about someone that's got a lot of catching up to do, but also probably has a lot to prove to himself coming into that locker room. I would love to see what a combination of Deion Henley and Junior Colson could be, but we just don't know that yet. Mm-hmm. And then you've got Delshon Phillips, who became Ryan Fitkin's ace on special teams last year. Marlo Wax really performed, especially in that final game of the season. So all of a sudden, it's an interesting position that you kind of find out that you have a little bit more depth than you would have thought, but it still is something that you need to reinforce. And much like edge position, I think linebacker is going to be another position that you're going to see the Chargers end up spending a draft selection on because it's another good, deep draft class as it relates to the linebacker spot. And if you're looking for someone, let's just say hypothetically, if Denzel Perryman ends up walking, if you're looking for someone who could come in and be a hammer against the run, you got a number of guys in this draft that can do that.
Yeah, and it is interesting because, like, again, kind of like with Khalil Mack, where it's like you have a Troy Dye still under contract, and he performed admirably, right? Like, you have Marlo Wax, who's kind of an uncertain kind of thing, but, like, Denzel Perryman, has that reached the end of the road, right? Like, there is a good chance that he's not back in 2026, and he doesn't fit into what the future holds for this team. I think for, Marlo Wax, that's the most interesting one to me because it's like you see the flashes. Because I straight up just think that Delshon Phillips is one of the more important players, whether, AAV or not. Like, he might not get the most money as far as, the highest price free agent the Chargers need to bring back. At the same time, what he did, like when he turned it on, you hear, that he was basically challenged mid-season to kind of help a special teams unit that was making Ryan Ficken look bad and just straight up wasn't very good for too much of the season. So, like, him being able to do that kind of mid-season and flip that switch and just end up with like 20 special teams tackles and end up, I think, second out of everyone in the league in special teams tackles, like, that is huge. When he got out there for small stints, you actually saw him play decently as well at linebacker. I know you have gotten a little bit into the draft so far, though I'm not going to ask you about any player in particular, but is there anyone that kind of, that you're just like, okay, like, I'm still 2 months away, but I'm already like, okay, this guy needs to be a Charger?
If there's like one to say where he's like, okay, that would be like the dream scenario to have, obviously it would be Big Vega out of Penn State, but I don't think that he has fallen to 22, unfortunately.
We can dream.
We can dream. We can definitely dream. I think there's about 3 or 4 guys that when it comes down to pick 22, if they're not on the board, then you definitely try to work a trade back and recoup some of that draft capital that you lost. Absolutely. Peter Woods, if for some reason he ends up falling, again, I don't see that happening, especially after this week. I think he's going to come in there and blow the doors off the combine. I don't think that he's going to be there. You could look at offensive lineman, defensive lineman, edge, and that's probably it. But you're going to put a premium on the trenches, whether it's offense, defense this year. You're going to see a lot of those high picks for the Chargers be spent in those areas. I'm a big fan of Josiah Trotter. If you're looking for someone who could just come in and instantaneously replace Denzel Perryman if he ends up walking as a linebacker, I would love to see his type of physical play inserted into this defense next to Deion Henley. one running back that I actually really like.
Oh,
Jamari Taylor out of Virginia. You look at the measurables, they're almost identical to Devon Achane. Almost identical. And this guy was used in every which way that you could possibly think of in Virginia, running the ball, passing the ball, catching the ball. He's got a lot of explosiveness that I like. I think he plays bigger than what his size is. If you were looking for that RB3 and much kind of the Devon Achane shade of what that was in Miami, I think that he's a guy that could come in there and complement that area really nicely. But time's going to tell. I think that you're going to be excited from what you see from the combine this week. I think that the draft in this case is going to show that it's deeper in a lot of positions than I think other people realize, whether it's edge, interior defensive line, offensive lineman, especially for the Chargers now with how they're going to retailor everything to more of a zone concept to fit Mike McDaniel's overall system. There's a lot to choose from. So it's a great problem to have for the Chargers, where traditionally we would be saying here right now, oh, it's a bad year for them because all these other teams need those positions and they're probably not going to get it. This year, you've got so many to choose from.
Yeah, and I think you're right. Like, especially, I think the bad thing for the Chargers with the draft, just in my very preliminary kind of look at it, is like, there's probably not going to be somebody at a huge position of need that's going to fit at 22, right? Like, it feels like if you're talking about edge rushers, defensive tackles, guys like that, it feels like late first round, early second round is kind of the sweet spot where the value kind of meets up to where the actual kind of player is, right? Like, and the talent level. So I think that could hurt them a little bit, but it feels like, man, it feels like it has to be in the trenches, and it feels like if it's not offensive lineman, it has to be the basically first defensive pick since Jake Hefner. Jerry Tillery, the last defensive first-round pick that the Chargers have had. It's been all offense since then, and it's also, the last time they spent a before day, round 3 pick on a defensive tackle. So we know that, we like to get Mike Elston some juice. Obviously, he's been a miracle worker with the bargain contracts that they've had, right, with Poona Ford and Tier Tart and all of these guys. A very special thank you to Jake Hefner. Obviously, with Dan Wolkenstein going under the weather, he didn't have to stick it out and do not 1, but 2 shows with us. So make sure you guys are back here tomorrow for the second part of this big-time Chargers content creator crossover. To make sure you don't miss it, go subscribe or follow for free on the Locked On Chargers YouTube channel and listen wherever you get your podcast from, as well as finding the show every day on our social media at Locked On OST on Twitter, at Locked On Chargers on Instagram, and our Locked On Chargers Facebook page. Go ahead and give Jake Hefner a follow on Twitter as well, at Jake T. Hefner, so you can keep up with all of this stuff. I know he's already been putting some draft stuff out there for the Chargers, which intrigues me a lot. But make sure you guys are back here tomorrow for the extra show we have, and also the bonus show we have coming out later on today when we talk about if the Chargers should pick up Quentin Johnston's 5th-year option or not. Me and David disagree. Come see why later. But until then, guys, take it easy and go Bolts.